Captain Marcus Reed stood on the bridge of Aurora's Hope, staring at the massive shape that filled their main screen. The ship was enormous, at least 10 times the size of his own vessel. Its dark metal hull showed battle scars and strange burns across its surface. It drifted silently in the empty space between galaxies, far from any star or planet. "Sir, we're getting no response to our signals," said Communications Officer Michael Stevens. He adjusted his headset and tried again. "The ship appears to be completely dead. No power signatures, no life signs that we can detect from this distance." ID walked closer to the screen. In his 20 years of deep space exploration, he had never seen anything like this vessel. Its design was angular and aggressive, with weapon ports covering every surface. Even damaged and powerless, it looked dangerous. "Dr. Carter, what do you make of those markings on the hull?" Reed asked. Dr. Emily Carter, the ship's xenobiologist, studied her readings carefully. Her face grew pale as she cross-referenced the symbols with their database. "Captain, those are Dominion markings. This is a Dominion warship." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew about the Dominion. They were the apex predators of the galaxy, a race that had conquered dozens of star systems. Their warriors were said to be unstoppable in battle, with strength and speed that made them nearly invincible. No one had ever seen a Dominion ship defeated, much less abandoned and drifting. Lieutenant Jake Morrison stepped forward. "Sir, we should leave immediately. If there are Dominion warriors on that ship, even injured ones could be extremely dangerous." Reed considered this advice. Morrison was right to be cautious. Every spacefaring civilization in the galaxy feared the Dominion. Stories told of entire fleets destroyed by single Dominion warships. Their reputation for violence and conquest was legendary. "Dr. Carter, is there any way to scan for life signs more accurately?" Reed asked. Carter worked at her console for several minutes. "I'm picking up something, Captain. Very faint readings. If there are life forms aboard, they're in extremely poor condition. The readings suggest they're barely alive." Reed studied the alien ship again. Something about the situation bothered him. Dominion ships were known for their advanced technology and powerful engines. For one to be drifting powerless in deep space meant something catastrophic had happened. "Commander Thompson, what's your assessment?" Reed asked his second-in-command. David Thompson was a careful man who always thought through problems before speaking. "Sir, the ship shows signs of recent damage, but not from weapons fire. These burn marks look like they came from some kind of stellar event. My guess is they encountered a cosmic storm or stellar collapse." "That would explain why they're so far from any inhabited system," Dr. Carter added. "They might have been, running from whatever destroyed their home base." Reed made his decision. "We're going to dock with that ship and investigate. Dr. Carter, prepare a full medical kit. Morrison, you and Thompson will accompany the away team. Stevens, keep monitoring all frequencies for any distress calls or warnings from other ships." Docking process took 2 hours. The Dominion ship's docking ports were much larger than standard designs, requiring careful maneuvering. Engineer Lisa Parker worked with the ship's computer to establish a safe connection between the two vessels. When the airlocks finally opened, Reed led his team into the alien ship. The corridors were vast and dimly lit by emergency power. Everything was built on a massive scale, clearly designed for beings much larger than humans. "The air is breathable," Carter reported, checking her scanner. "Oxygen levels are low but acceptable. Temperature is quite cold." They moved deeper into the ship, following life sign readings on Carter's device. The corridor showed signs of hasty evacuation. Equipment was scattered on the floor, and blast doors had been sealed in multiple locations. "This way," Carter said, pointing down a wide hallway. "The life signs are getting stronger." They found them in what appeared to be the ship's medical bay. 12 Dominion warriors lay on oversized medical beds, connected to life support systems that flickered with failing power. Reed had never seen a Dominion warrior before, and their size was impressive even lying down. Each one was easily 8 feet tall, with powerful muscles visible beneath their scaled skin. But these legendary apex predators looked nothing like the fearsome conquerors from the stories. They were clearly malnourished, their skin pale and their breathing shallow. Several appeared to be unconscious, while others watched the humans with tired eyes that held no aggression. "My God," whispered Thompson. "They're starving." One of the warriors tried to sit up, but the effort seemed to exhaust him completely. He spoke in a deep voice, but the words were in the Dominion language that none of the humans understood. Carter immediately began scanning the aliens with her medical equipment. "Captain, these beings are in critical condition. Whatever they normally eat, they haven't had it for weeks, possibly months. Their bodies are consuming their own muscle tissue to survive." Reed stared at the dying warriors. These were supposed to be the most feared beings in the galaxy, the apex predators that entire civilizations fled from. Now they lay helpless too, weak to even stand. Morrison grabbed Reed's arm. "Sir, we need to leave. When word gets out that we found weakened Dominion warriors, every military force in the galaxy will want to finish them off. We'll be caught in the middle." Reed understood Morrison's concerns, but something deeper was troubling him. These beings, regardless of their reputation, were dying. They had clearly suffered some terrible catastrophe that left them stranded and starving. "Dr. Carter, is there anything we can do for them?" Reed asked. Carter hesitated. "Well, theoretically, some of our protein rations might help sustain them temporarily. But Captain, we're talking about feeding the galaxy's most dangerous predators." Reed looked at the weakened warriors again. One of them was watching him with what seemed like curiosity rather than hostility. The warrior's eyes held intelligence and perhaps even a plea for help. "Sir, this is madness," Morrison said. "The moment they regain their strength, they could kill us all and take our ship." Reed knew Morrison was right to be concerned. Everything they knew about the Dominion suggested they were merciless conquerors who showed no mercy to other species. But looking at these dying beings, Reed saw something that challenged everything he had been told. "Dr. Carter, prepare some protein rations. We're going to help them." The decision would change everything. Dr. Rachel Adams stared at the protein analysis results on her screen. As chief medical officer of Aurora's Hope, she had seen many strange situations, but nothing like this. The readings showed that human protein rations could actually help the dying Dominion warriors survive. "The molecular structure is surprisingly compatible," she explained to Captain Reed and Dr. Carter in the ship's medical bay. "Their digestive systems can process our food, though not as efficiently as whatever they normally eat." Reed nodded. "How much food are we talking about?" "Each warrior needs about 3 times what a human would eat per day," Adams replied. "With 12 of them, that's a significant portion of our supplies." Commander Thompson frowned. "Captain, we're months away from the nearest supply station. If we give them that much food, we might not have enough for our own crew." Reed had expected this concern. His crew of 42 people depended on him to get them home safely, but the image of those dying warriors stayed in his mind. "We'll manage with reduced rations if necessary. Dr. Adams, prepare the first feeding." The team returned to the Dominion ship with containers of protein paste and nutrient bars. The warriors were exactly as they had left them, too weak to move much. The largest warrior, who seemed to be their leader, watched the humans with alert, but tired eyes. Dr. Carter approached the leader cautiously. She held up a nutrient bar and made eating motions, hoping the universal nature of hunger would translate her intentions. The warrior's eyes widened slightly, and he managed a weak nod. Adams inserted a feeding tube into the warrior's mouth. The protein paste flowed slowly, and they waited to see if his body would accept the foreign food. Minutes passed in tense silence. Finally, the warrior's vital signs on Carter's scanner began to improve slightly. His breathing became less labored, and some color returned to his pale skin. "It's working," Carter whispered. The feeding process took hours. Each warrior had to be fed carefully to avoid overwhelming their weakened systems. Some of the aliens were too unconscious to swallow, requiring Adams to use intravenous feeding methods she had adapted for their alien physiology. Lieutenant Morrison stood guard near the entrance, clearly uncomfortable with the entire situation. "Sir, this still feels like a mistake. We're nursing Vipers back to health." Reed understood Morrison's fear, but he had made his decision. "These beings are suffering, Lieutenant. Whatever they've done in the past, right now they need help. Engineer. Lisa Parker worked on restoring power to more sections of the Dominion ship. The life support systems were failing, and the warriors needed stable environmental conditions to recover. She discovered that the ship's power core had been damaged by some kind of stellar radiation. Captain, their whole system is fried. Parker reported over the communication link. Whatever hit them, it was massive. I'm surprised any of them survived at all. As the day progressed, some of the warriors showed signs of improvement. The leader was able to sit up slightly and seemed more alert. He watched the humans with what appeared to be curiosity rather than hostility. Dr. Carter noticed that the leader was trying to communicate. He pointed to himself and made sounds that might have been his name. Then he pointed to the humans and tilted his head questioningly. "I think he's asking for our names," Carter said. She pointed to herself and said clearly, "Emily." Then she pointed to Reed. "Marcus." The warrior nodded slowly and attempted to repeat the sounds. His voice was deep and gravelly, but he managed something close to their names. Then he pointed to himself and made a series of sounds that the humans could not pronounce. Communications Officer Stevens had been working on the translation problem. "Captain, I've been analyzing their language patterns from the ship's computer. I think I can create a basic translation program, but it'll take time." The feeding routine continued for 3 days. Each day the warriors grew a little stronger. They began to show more interest in their surroundings and in the humans who were caring for them. The leader, whom the humans had started calling Chief because they could not pronounce his real name, was now able to speak in short phrases through Stephen's basic translator. "Why, help us?" was the first complete question the chief managed to ask through the translation device. Reed considered his answer carefully. "Because you needed help," he said simply. The chief stared at Reed for a long moment. The translator conveyed his response. "Others fear us, run from us. You stay, feed us." "You were dying," Reed replied. "We couldn't just leave you to die." This seemed to confuse the chief greatly. He spoke rapidly to the other warriors, who were conscious, and they responded with what sounded like equally confused questions. Dr. Carter was fascinated by the aliens' social dynamics. "Captain, I think the concept of helping enemies is completely foreign to them. Their entire culture seems built around conquest and dominance." Adams had been monitoring the warriors' physical recovery. "They're definitely getting stronger. Muscle mass is returning and their energy levels are improving daily. At this rate, they'll be back to perhaps 60% of their normal strength within a week." Thompson pulled Reed aside. "Sir, we need to discuss what happens when they're strong enough to be dangerous. Right now they're grateful, but what about when they don't need us anymore?" Reed had been thinking about the same question. The warriors were clearly powerful beings even in their weakened state. Once they recovered, they could easily overpower the human crew if they chose to. "We'll deal with that when the time comes," Reed said. "Right now we focus on keeping them alive." The chief had been listening to their conversation through the translator. He spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. "You fear us when we strong again," the translation device conveyed. Reed looked directly at the alien leader. "Should we?" The chief was quiet for a long time, considering the question. Finally, he responded, "We do not know. This new thing. No one feed us before. No one help enemies." Parker's work on the ship's systems was progressing well. She had managed to restore heating and improved life support to the medical bay. The warriors were more comfortable now and their recovery was accelerating. "Captain," she reported, "I found something interesting in their computer systems. This ship was part of a much larger fleet. According to the logs, their home system was destroyed by a stellar collapse. This might be the last Dominion ship in existence. The implications were staggering. The galaxy's most feared predators might be down to just these 12 survivors." Stevens received a priority message from their home command. "Captain, We're being ordered to return immediately. Command has detected our position near Dominion space and wants us to evacuate the area. Reed read the message carefully. Command had no idea about their current situation, but the order was clear. They were supposed to abandon the area and return to human space immediately. The chief watched. Reed read the message. Through the translator, he asked, "You must go?" Reed looked at the recovering warriors. In just 3 days of feeding and care, they had transformed from dying beings into alert, intelligent individuals. The decision about what to do next would determine not just their fate, but possibly the future of human-Dominion relations. "Not yet," Reed told the chief. "We're not leaving yet." The translation device had improved greatly over the past week. Communications Officer Stevens worked day and night to decode the Dominion language, and now full conversations were possible. The breakthrough came when the chief began sharing the story of what had happened to his people. Captain Reed sat across from the alien leader in the medical bay. The chief was much stronger now, able to sit upright without assistance. His scales had regained their natural dark color and his eyes were clear and alert. Even sitting down, he towered over Reed. "Our home system was called Zerion," the chief began, his deep voice now clearly understandable through the translator. 7 planets orbited our sun, rich worlds, full of prey species that kept us strong for thousands of years. Dr. Carter listened carefully, taking notes. This was the first detailed information anyone had ever obtained about Dominion civilization. "What kind of prey species?" she asked. The chief's expression darkened. "Large creatures with thick shells and strong bodies. We called them renders. They bred quickly and fought back when hunted. This made them perfect food for warriors. Hunting them made us faster, stronger, more cunning." Reed noticed something in the alien's tone. "Made you stronger how?" "Our bodies need specific proteins that only come from live combat prey," the chief explained. "Without hunting and consuming fighting prey, we grow weak. Our muscles shrink, our speed decreases, our minds become slow." Dr. Adams, who had been monitoring the conversation, stepped forward. "Are you saying your species requires violence to survive biologically?" The chief nodded slowly. "Yes, we must hunt, we must fight, we must consume struggling prey. It is not choice, it is need like breathing." This revelation stunned the human team. Dr. Carter quickly ran calculations on her tablet. "Chief, if your biology requires live combat prey, how are our protein rations helping you recover?" "They give basic nutrition to keep us alive," the chief replied. "But they cannot give us full strength or clear thinking. We are perhaps half of what we should be even now." Commander Thompson, who had been quietly listening, leaned forward. "So your entire civilization was built around this biological need to hunt?" "Yes," the chief said. "We had no choice but to be warriors. Our bodies demanded it. We conquered other worlds not from cruelty, but from hunger. We needed more prey species to sustain our growing population." Reed was beginning to understand the tragic scope of what had happened. "What happened to your home system?" The chief's shoulders sagged. "We consumed everything. Every render, every fighting creature on all 7 worlds. We hunted them to extinction. Within 500 years, then we began hunting each other." The humans exchanged shocked glances. Dr. Carter spoke first. "Your own species fought each other for food?" "Brother against brother, clan against clan," the chief confirmed. "The hunger made us desperate. Civil war consumed our civilization. For 50 years. Half our population died." Engineer Parker, who had been working on the ship's computer systems, looked up from her workstation. "Captain, I found records of this in their databases. Massive population decline, ecosystem collapse, civil conflicts lasting decades." The chief continued his story. "When we realized we had destroyed ourselves, some of us tried to find new ways to live. We attempted to create artificial prey, to breed new fighting creatures. Nothing worked. Our bodies rejected anything that did not come from real combat." "So you turned to conquering other worlds," Reed said. "It was survival," the chief replied. "We sent our remaining ships to find new prey species on other planets, but by then we were already weakened. We could not breed enough new warriors to replace those lost in the civil wars. Dr. Adams had been analyzing blood samples from the warriors throughout their recovery. Chief, I've been studying your biology. The proteins you need, they're incredibly specific. Your entire evolutionary path was shaped around hunting particular types of creatures. Creatures that no longer exist, the chief said sadly. When we found the renders on our conquered worlds, we made the same mistake. We consumed them all too quickly, always needing more. Stevens looked up from his communication console. Captain, I've been monitoring galactic news feeds. Other species have reported that Dominion raids stopped completely about 6 months ago. The chief nodded. Because we were all dying. This ship carried the last of our kind. We were fleeing the final collapse of our remaining colony when the stellar event caught us. Parker had found more data in the ship's computer. According to these logs, their sun went supernova. The radiation burst destroyed all life in their system and damaged the ship severely. They've been drifting for months. Reed felt a chill as he understood the full truth. You're not just the last ship. You're the last Dominion alive anywhere. Yes, the chief confirmed. 12 warriors, all that remains of a civilization that once controlled 40 star systems. Dr. Carter looked up from her research. Chief, what caused your sun to go supernova? The alien leader was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried deep shame. We did. In our desperation for resources, we began mining our sun itself. We extracted stellar matter to try to create artificial prey creatures. The process destabilized the star. The confession hung in the air like a physical weight. The galaxy's most feared predators had literally consumed themselves to extinction. Lieutenant Morrison, who had remained suspicious of the aliens throughout their recovery, spoke for the first time. So you destroyed your own sun trying to make food? Yes, the chief said simply. We were so driven by hunger that we could not see the consequences. We thought we could control stellar forces the same way we controlled prey animals. Reed stood and walked to the viewing port. Outside, the vast emptiness of intergalactic space stretched in all directions. What did your people plan to do? Where were you going when we found you? We had no plan, the chief admitted. We were simply running from the supernova, hoping to find something, anything that might let us survive. Most of us expected to die in space. Dr. Adams made another disturbing discovery. Captain, based on their metabolic rates and dietary needs, even if we fed them continuously with our protein rations, they would still weaken over time. Without their natural prey, they will eventually waste away completely. The chief heard this and nodded. We know. Your food has given us more time, but it cannot save us permanently. We are a dying species. Pilot Sarah Collins, who had been listening from her station, asked the question everyone was thinking. If you know you're dying anyway, what do you want to do with the time you have left? The chief looked at each of the humans in turn. His expression was unlike anything they had expected from the galaxy's apex predators. Instead of rage or despair, they saw something that looked almost like peace. For the first time in our species' history, he said, we want to try something other than hunting. You have shown us that it is possible to help instead of consume. We want to learn this way. Before we die, Reed returned to his seat. The revelation changed everything he thought he knew about the Dominion. They were not evil conquerors, but prisoners of their own biology, driven to destruction by needs they could not control. What if we could find a way to change your biology? Reed asked. What if there was a solution that didn't require hunting? The chief stared at him with surprise. You would try to save us even knowing what we have done? You did what you had to do to survive, Reed replied. Now maybe we can help you find another way. For the first time since the humans had found them, several of the warriors began to weep. The emergency alarm echoed through both ships. Communications Officer Stevens looked up from his console with alarm. Captain, we have multiple ships approaching. It's a coalition fleet, at least 20 vessels. Captain Reed rushed to the bridge of Aurora's Hope. On the main screen, he could see the approaching fleet spread out in attack formation. The ships belonged to different species, but they all flew under the banner of the Galactic Council. Sir, we're receiving a transmission. Stevens reported. Put it through, Reed ordered. The face that appeared on screen belonged to Admiral Corvin, a member of the Terran species that had suffered greatly under Dominion attacks years ago. Captain Reed, you are ordered to immediately surrender the Dominion survivors in your custody. By harboring these war criminals, you have violated 17 galactic treaties. Reed stood straighter. Admiral, these beings are under medical care. They pose no threat in their current condition. No threat? Corvin's voice rose. Captain, those creatures destroyed my homeworld. They killed billions of innocent beings across the galaxy. The fact that they are weakened does not erase their crimes. Dr. Carter entered the bridge and handed Reed a data pad. She had been working with the Dominion chief to document their species' history and biological needs. Captain, I think the Admiral needs to understand what we've learned. Reed looked at the data. Admiral, new information has come to light about the Dominion. Their aggressive behavior was driven by biological necessity, not choice. They were essentially prisoners of their own evolution. I don't care about their excuses, Corvin replied. They are killers and they must face justice. You have 30 minutes to transfer them to our custody, or we will consider you an enemy combatant. The transmission ended. Reed looked around, the bridge at his crew. Everyone understood the gravity of the situation. They were facing an entire fleet with just one exploration vessel. Commander Thompson approached Reed. Sir, we can't fight 20 ships. Maybe we should consider their offer and watch them execute the last members of an entire species? Reed asked. These beings are dying anyway. Is summary execution really justice? Lieutenant Morrison spoke up. Captain, I understand your position, but our duty is to our own crew first. We have 42 people depending on us to get them home. Dr. Carter connected her tablet to the bridge systems. Captain, I've been analyzing the Dominion's biological data. I think I might have found something important. Their need for combat, proteins isn't permanent. With the right treatment, we might be able to modify their biology. Reed studied her findings. Are you saying we could cure them of their need to hunt? It's possible, Carter replied. But I would need time to develop the treatment, and the Dominion would need to volunteer for experimental procedures. The chief's voice came through the communication system. He had been listening to the conversation from the medical bay. Captain Reed, we do not wish to cause your death. We will go with these other ships if it saves your crew. Reed activated the ship-wide intercom. Chief, you and your people are under our protection. We're not turning you over to anyone. Security Chief Robert Turner was monitoring the Coalition fleet. Captain, they're powering weapons. It looks like they're serious about their 30-minute deadline. Reed made a decision that would change everything. Stevens, open a channel to the Dominion ship. I want to speak with all of their warriors. The communication linked both ships. Reed could see the 12 Dominion warriors gathered in their medical bay, all watching him through the screen. Despite being much stronger than when they were found, they still appeared weak compared to their legendary reputation. I need to know something, Reed said. If we help you, if Dr. Carter can find a way to change your biology so you don't need to hunt, what would you do with your lives? The chief translated Reed's question to the other warriors. They spoke among themselves in their own language for several minutes. Finally, the chief turned back to the screen. Captain, for our entire history we have only known how to destroy. You have shown us it is possible to create, to help, to heal. If you can free us from our biological prison, we would like to learn these things. Another warrior stepped forward. Through the translator, his words came clearly. We would like to protect instead of hunt. We would like to build instead of destroy. Reed felt a chill run down his spine. The most feared predators in the galaxy were asking for a chance to become something else entirely. Turner, how long until the fleet reaches weapons range? Reed asked. 15 minutes, sir, Turner replied. Reed walked to the center of the bridge. Stevens, open a channel to the Coalition fleet. Admiral Corvin's face appeared again. Captain, I hope you've made the right decision. I have, Reed said. We refuse to surrender the Dominion survivors. Corvin's expression hardened. Then you, have chosen to die with them. All ships, prepare to fire. Reed looked at his crew. Everyone was watching him, waiting for orders. He knew he was asking them to risk their lives for former enemies, beings that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. Anyone who wants to leave on the escape pods can do so now, Reed announced. I won't order anyone to stay for this fight. Nobody moved. Lieutenant Morrison stepped forward. Sir, I still think this is crazy, but we're with you. The chief's voice came over the intercom again. Captain, we are strong enough to fight now. We will not let you face this alone. Reed realized what the alien was suggesting. Chief, if you fight alongside us, there's no going back. The galaxy will see it, as proof that we're working together. Then let them see it, the chief replied. For the first time in our history, we will fight to protect instead of to consume. Dr. Carter looked up from her medical scans. Captain, the Dominion warriors are at about 60% of their normal strength. Against 20 ships, it might not be enough. Reed studied the tactical display. The coalition fleet was almost in firing range. In a few minutes, they would have to prove that mercy was not weakness, and that enemies could become allies. Stevens, record a message to Earth Command, Reed ordered. Tell them what we've learned about the Dominion and what we're trying to do here. Captain, Turner reported, the lead ships are locking weapons on us. Reed took a deep breath. All hands, prepare for battle. Chief, are your warriors ready? We are ready, Captain, came the reply. For the first time, we fight for something other than hunger. The test was about to begin. The first energy blasts lit up space around Aurora's Hope. Captain Reed gripped his command chair as the ship shook under the impact of weapon fire. The coalition fleet had opened fire without further warning. Shields at 80%, reported Engineer Parker from her station. We can't take much more of this, Captain. The Dominion ship, despite its damaged condition, began to move. The chief had somehow restored enough power to bring their weapons online. Reed watched in amazement as the massive alien vessel positioned itself between Aurora's Hope and the attacking fleet. Chief, what are you doing? Reed called over the communication link. Protecting our friends, came the reply. This is what protection means, yes? The Dominion ship's weapons were unlike anything Reed had ever seen. Beams of pure energy cut through space, striking the coalition ships with incredible precision. 2 enemy vessels were disabled within seconds, their shields completely overwhelmed. Admiral Corvin's voice crackled over the communication system. This proves it. The humans are working with the Dominion. All ships concentrate fire on both vessels. The battle intensified. The coalition fleet spread out to surround both ships, forcing Reed to make tactical decisions he had never trained. 4. Aurora's Hope was an exploration vessel, not a warship. Stevens, can you coordinate our defensive systems with the Dominion ship? Reed asked. I'm trying, sir, Stevens replied. Their tactical systems are incredibly advanced. I think they're trying to protect us while keeping us out of the direct fighting. Dr. Carter was monitoring the Dominion warriors from the medical bay. Captain, their combat performance is extraordinary even at reduced strength. I'm reading incredible coordination between their ship and crew. Through the viewing port, Reed could see the alien ship moving with impossible grace despite its size. The Dominion warriors were fighting like they had been born for it, which in a way they had. But something was different about their combat style. Instead of the aggressive, predatory attacks the galaxy expected from Dominion warriors, they were fighting defensively. Every move was calculated to protect Aurora's Hope, while minimizing damage to the coalition ships. Captain, Turner called out, they're not trying to destroy the enemy ships, they're disabling them. Reed realized Turner was right. The Dominion weapons were targeting engines and weapon systems, not critical life support areas. They were fighting to defend, not to kill. Admiral Corvin seemed to notice this too. All ships the Dominion is holding back. Press the attack while they're showing weakness. 6 coalition ships focused their fire on the Dominion vessel. The alien ship's shields flared under the assault, and Reed could see damage spreading across its hull. Chief, your ship is taking heavy damage, Reed reported. We will endure, the chief replied. We have endured worse. Dr. Adams, who had been treating the Dominion warriors, provided an update. Captain, 3 of the warriors have been injured by system overloads. They're continuing to fight despite their wounds. Reed made a decision that surprised even himself. Parker, route all power from non-essential systems to weapons. Turner, target the lead coalition ship. Sir, are you sure? Turner asked. We'll be directly attacking Council forces. They fired first, Reed replied. We're defending ourselves, and our allies. Aurora's Hope's weapons were much smaller than those of the Dominion ship, but they were precise. Reed targeted the flagship's weapon systems, hoping to disable Admiral Corvin's ability to coordinate the attack. The tactic worked. With their flagship disabled, the coalition fleet began to lose coordination. Several ships pulled back to regroup, giving the Dominion vessel time to repair some of its damaged systems. Captain Reed, Corvin's voice came over the communication system. You are making a grave mistake. When this battle is over, Earth will be held accountable for your actions. Reed activated the ship-wide broadcast system, so his words could be heard by all the coalition ships. Admiral, you're trying to execute the last survivors of a dying species. These beings have committed to changing their ways. Where's the justice in genocide? Justice? Corvin's voice was filled with rage. My family died in a Dominion raid. Billions of beings across the galaxy died because of them. There is no forgiveness for what they've done. The chief's voice joined the conversation. Admiral Corvin, I do not ask for forgiveness. I ask only for the chance to die doing something other than causing death. You'll get your chance to die, Corvin replied. Right here, right now. The coalition fleet regrouped and prepared for a final assault. Reed counted 15 ships still capable of fighting. Against the combined human and Dominion vessels, the odds were still heavily against them. Captain, Dr. Carter called from her station. I'm reading massive power fluctuations from the Dominion ship. I think they're preparing to overload their remaining weapon systems. Reed understood what this meant. The Dominion were preparing for a suicide attack to protect Aurora's Hope. After everything they had been through together, the aliens were willing to sacrifice themselves for their human allies. Chief, don't do it, Reed said over the communication link. Don't throw away your lives. Captain Reed, the chief replied, you gave us the gift of choice. For the first time, we choose how we die. We choose to die protecting friends instead of consuming enemies. The Dominion ship began to glow with contained energy. Reed knew that in moments it would unleash everything it had in one final attack. Then something unexpected happened. 3 of the coalition ships broke formation and moved away from the battle zone. This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the Science. Vessel Horizon, came a new voice over the communication system. We've been monitoring this engagement and we're withdrawing from combat. Admiral Corvin's voice crackled with fury. Rodriguez, you're in violation of direct orders. Admiral, we joined this fleet to bring war criminals to justice, Rodriguez replied. What I see here is a dying species trying to find redemption, and humans showing them how. That's not something that deserves destruction. 2 more ships announced their withdrawal from the battle. The coalition fleet was falling apart as individual captains began to question their orders. Reed seized the moment. All coalition ships, the Dominion survivors have committed no crime since we found them. They fought only to defend themselves and us. If you want justice, give them the chance to prove they can change. The chief added his own words. We cannot undo the past, but perhaps we can build a different future. For several minutes, space was filled only with the hum of engines and the crackle of damaged systems. Finally, Admiral Corvin spoke again. Stand down all weapons, he ordered his remaining ships. Captain Reed, you and the Dominion survivors will be taken into custody for a formal hearing before the Galactic Council. Reed looked at his crew, then at the communication screen showing the Dominion warriors. Chief, what do you think? We will face this council, the chief replied. It is time for our species to account for our actions and to ask for the chance to become something better. The battle was over, but Reed knew the real challenge was just beginning. They would have to convince an entire galaxy that enemies could become allies, and that mercy was not weakness but strength. 6 months after the battle, Captain Reed stood before the Galactic Council on the space station Haven. The massive chamber held representatives from dozens of species, all watching as he prepared to deliver his final statement. The hearing had lasted 3 weeks. Every detail of the encounter with the Dominion survivors had been examined, debated, and analyzed. Dr. Carter had presented her biological research, showing how the aliens' violent nature was driven by evolutionary necessity rather than choice. The Dominion chief, now calling himself by the human name David at Reed's suggestion, sat in a specially constructed chair designed for his large frame. The other 11 survivors were present as well, all having recovered to nearly full strength under Dr. Adams's continued medical care. The council will now hear Captain Reed's closing statement, announced Chancellor Morris, an elderly human who served as the current council leader. Reed stepped forward to the speaking platform. Honored representatives, 6 months ago my crew found 12 dying beings drifting in space. We made a choice to help them, not knowing who they were or what they had done. When we learned they were Dominion warriors, many urged us to abandon them. He paused, looking at the chief. But we also learned something else. These beings were not evil by choice, but prisoners of their own biology. They were driven to violence by needs they could not control, and those same needs ultimately destroyed their entire civilization. Representative Corvin, the same admiral, who had led the attack fleet, stood up. Captain Reed, noble intentions do not erase the facts. The Dominion killed billions of innocent beings. How can you ask us to forgive that? I'm not asking for forgiveness, Reed replied. I'm asking for the chance to let them earn redemption. Dr. Carter approached the platform with a data tablet. Honored Council, I'd like to present the results of our medical research. The large screens around the chamber displayed complex biological data. We have successfully modified the Dominion's biological need for combat proteins. Using synthetic, alternatives and genetic therapy, we have freed them from their evolutionary prison. A murmur ran through the chamber. This was the first time the complete results had been shared publicly. The treatment is permanent, Carter continued. The Dominion survivors no longer require hunting or violence to maintain their physical and mental health. They can live normal lives without harming others. The chief requested permission to speak. His voice, now clear through advanced translation systems, filled the chamber. Honored representatives, I cannot undo the pain my people caused. I cannot bring back those who died because of our hunger, but I can offer something that has never existed before. Dominion warriors who fight to protect instead of consume. He stood, his massive frame towering over everyone in the chamber. Captain Reed and his crew showed us that strength comes not from dominating others, but from helping them. We wish to learn this human way. Chancellor Morris consulted with the other council leaders. The question before us is not just about these 12 individuals, but about the precedent we set. Do we believe beings can truly change? Representative Rodriguez, the captain who had withdrawn from the battle, spoke up. Chancellor, I've spent the last 6 months observing the Dominion survivors. They have worked alongside human engineers to develop new technologies for peaceful exploration. They have shared their advanced knowledge freely, asking for nothing in return. Engineer Parker had been working with the Dominion on several projects. She was called to testify about their contributions. The Dominion ship technology is centuries ahead of ours, Parker explained. Their power systems, defensive capabilities, and navigation technology could revolutionize space travel. They've given us complete access to everything, holding back nothing, the chief added. We offer our knowledge as payment for the gift of choice that humans gave us. Dr. Adams presented medical evidence showing the complete transformation of the Dominion survivors. Their brain chemistry has changed dramatically. The aggression centers that once dominated their neural activity have been replaced by patterns associated with cooperation and empathy. Ambassador Patricia Hayes, representing Earth's government, made the final argument. This council has always stood for justice and redemption. If we deny these beings the chance to prove their change, we become no better than the predators we once feared. The debate continued for hours. Some representatives demanded the Dominion be executed for their past crimes. Others argued for exile to a remote system. A few supported the human proposal for supervised integration. Finally, Chancellor Morris called for a vote. The question before the council is whether to grant provisional citizenship to the Dominion survivors with a 5-year probationary period under human supervision. The vote was close, 37 in favor, 32 against, with 6 abstentions. The Dominion survivors had been granted a chance at redemption. As the council session ended, Reed found himself approached by representatives from several species. They wanted to know more about humanity's approach to conflict resolution. "Captain," asked Representative Tolan from the Centauri Republic, "how did you know the Dominion could be trusted?" Reed considered the question carefully. "We didn't know. We just believed that any being capable of change deserved the chance to try." 3 years later, Reed, now promoted to admiral, stood on the observation deck of New Haven Station. The joint, human Dominion colony below bustled with activity. Former warriors worked alongside human engineers, building homes and research facilities. The chief, who had officially taken the name David, approached carrying a small human child. The little girl showed no fear of the massive alien, treating him like any other adult in the colony. "She wants to know if you'll read her a story," David said, his voice filled with amusement. Reed took the child, marveling at how natural this interaction had become. "What story would you like to hear?" "The one about the space captain who fed the scary monsters," the girl replied. Reed smiled. The story had become legend among the children of the colony, though they had simplified it considerably. Once upon a time there was a captain who found some very hungry friends in space. As he told the story, Reed reflected on how much had changed. The galaxy's former apex predators had become its newest protectors. The Dominion had established peacekeeping forces that helped settle disputes between species, using their incredible abilities to protect rather than conquer. Dr. Carter's research had led to treatments for other species with violent biological imperatives. The techniques developed for the Dominion were being adapted to help various aggressive species find peaceful alternatives to their natural behaviors. The transformation wasn't complete, and it wasn't easy. Some Dominions struggled with their new nature, and some species in the galaxy still viewed them with suspicion. But progress was being made. David finished his duties and joined Reed at the observation window. "Admiral, we received another distress signal today. A ship from the warrior clans of Rigel. They appear to be stranded and starving." Reed smiled. The warrior clans were another apex predator species, known for their raids on peaceful planets. "Prepare a rescue mission. Load extra protein rations." "Sir, the clans have attacked human colonies before," David pointed out. "Then it's time they learned what we learned," Reed replied. "That enemies can become friends if someone is willing to offer them food instead of weapons." David nodded. "I will prepare my warriors to assist with the rescue." Reed watched the sunset over New Haven colony, where human children played with young Dominion in the gardens below. The galaxy's most feared predators had learned to be gentle with the smallest and weakest beings. The story that had begun with a simple act of feeding the hungry had grown into something much larger. It had become proof that the universe's greatest strength wasn't in the power to destroy, but in the courage to show mercy when mercy seemed impossible. And somewhere in deep space, another distress signal waited for an answer, another chance to turn an enemy into an ally with the simple offer of a shared meal.